work, which has inspired research papers on gender studies. Her latest novel, An Unfinished Search, has been widely featured in all national dailies as well as at international fora. Some of her works are being taught in universities and have been translated into other Indian and foreign languages. She is joining us online in a moment. I would also take this opportunity to request Sri Prempal Sharma to join us on the dais, please. Sri Prempal Sharma ji. Sri Prempal Sharma has been writing for 40 years and has 3 short story collections, a book on satire, and 25 books on various topics like education to his credit. His works have been published in many reputed journals and magazines. He won the Hindi Academy Award in 2005. Sri Prempal Sharma. May I also request Sri Madhurantakam Narendra to join us on the dais, please. Sri Narendra writes in English and Telugu. He has to his credit 9 short story collections, 5 novels, 2 plays, besides several research papers. His publications include Kumbh Mela and Bhuchakra. He is a recipient of several awards and accolades, including Sahitya Akademi Award, Madras. Sri Narendra has kindly consented to chair this session as well. So I hand over the mic to Sri Narendra. You're chairing the session. Say a few opening remarks today.
Good morning. I welcome all of you to this multilingual story reading. In fact, I'm asked to chair this session just now. That's why I'm trying to recollect something to tell you that suits the occasion. In fact, India is considered to be the home of the stories. So it is a land of stories. From the days of Katha Saristagara, the story has been going on, enriching the literature in every possible way. And the contemporary story of India is also a remarkable one. And you can compare it with the other great writings of the other nations. In a way, short story is one of the important genres of modern Indian literature. And like the other important pioneers of the Telugu short story, Chekhov, Mapasa, O. Henry, and Edgar Allan Poe, I think Tagore has to be placed on the same pedestal. Unfortunately, we are not projecting the same in the world, in the history of the world, as Tagore is one among the pioneers of the short story, and he has perfected the short story in a different way. He made it Indian out and out, and he has created lyrical short stories in which you can find nature becoming an important character, and he presents the exuberance of the human relationships in a marvelous way. In that way, short story is one of the prime genres of modern India, and there are many writers who have been working in this genre for a long time. And here today, we are going to have 4 important, I think 4, isn't it, madam? We are going to have 4 writers presenting their stories in their mother tongues. I think one among them is only 3. The other one is in English.
One online.
Okay. Okay. So there are only 3 story readings. This is an advantage in a way. In fact, we three can have equal time now. So it is not easy to read a story in 10 minutes. I think we have a bonus today because one of them is present. Unfortunately, we should not look that way also, but sometimes there is a disadvantage in the advantage also. So let us have three short stories now. One of them will be presenting online. So she will be presenting her story in English, isn't it? So we are
Start with
we are going to start with it.
yes.
Yes, we are going to start with a writer from Indian English literature, isn't it? So she is going to present her story in English. Let us have it. Okay, madam.
Can I start? Is it? Am I audible? Am I audible, please? Hello? Yes. You don't get my voice. Can you get it now? Okay.
हेलो
Okay.
हेलो
Okay. Now I can get your
ज़्यादा मत
voice.
बढ़ाना हाँ मैम नाउ यू कैन स्पीक हेलो
All right. Do you get my voice now?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So because of these connection issues, I am asked to read my story. So
Okay.
we are going to begin the session with my story. It takes 15 minutes. So in fact, this is a big story which is abridged for this occasion. And the name of the story is The Mela. You know what is meant by Mela? It is in the Telugu, it is called Kumbh Mela. And in the English, I named it The Mela, which is abridged for this occasion. Yes. And the name of the story is The Mela. You know what is meant by Mela? It is in the Telugu, okay. It is, they are playing. Can I begin? Okay. So the story goes like this. The Mela. I drove the penknife into the frame of the seat in front of me, and the cockroach lurking there scurried out at once. I had struck up an odd companionship with that cockroach in the morning. When this journey began, paying no heed to the other passengers on the bus. Why should I waste my breath talking to human beings when I could amuse myself by playing with a creature like this? For that matter, why should not a man converse with himself as I do, unlike others who can only talk to fellow human beings? Am I not one of a kind, A man without an equal in this world, living unconventionally is my forte. I am unparalleled, second to none. For a year leading up to this journey, I had shut myself away in the house I had named Anomaly, never once stepping out of its veranda. The errand boy I had hired would bring the groceries I ordered every other day, leaving them silently at the threshold and disappear. I also stopped receiving newspapers as they were nothing but a cacophony of global strife, and neither radio nor television had any place in my home. There may be countless Matsudans in this world, only one who has willingly reshaped himself into Madhusudan. Last year, I undertook scores of unprecedented experiments. Why must human beings walk on their feet alone? Why shouldn't they eat only with their hands? Why must they eat exactly 3 meals a day? Can the body not adapt to eating at night and sleeping during the day? Why can't one turn day into night simply by shutting all doors and windows? Is it not far more convenient to swallow vitamin tablets than to burden the stomach with endless food and uncooked cereals? Suddenly, the bus jolted to a stop, and as if to aggravate me further, a nerve in my right temple began to throb, while a muscle in my left thigh twitched. I took 3 tablets from my enormous medical kit and swallowed them with a sip of water from my bottle. With no other choice, I trudged a few steps. The driver, who had removed the front tire of the bus and was hammering away at the engine with long screwdrivers while crouching beneath its undercarriage, said, "Hello, sir. This mission needs at least half a day's repair. Fortunately, it broke down here, right next to a temple, and there is a grand mela in full swing, an event that only comes once every 12 years. Go on and enjoy yourselves till midnight." Swarms of people thronged the river banks and the temple like iron filings drawn to a magnet. I had always been a wanderer, venturing into desolate mountains where I was nothing but a solitary thinker in the vast landscapes. My routine was far from ordinary. I woke up late, bathed in the afternoon, and went into the mess at odd hours just to avoid being another faceless figure in the frenzied crowds. I never attended classes like the average student, but found solace in the stillness of the library at night, keeping the town's deserted streets company long after midnight. A massive lorry, crammed with men howling and cheering, rumbled past me, but I paid no mind. As a nerve in my right temple throbbed and a muscle in my left thigh began to twitch, I sank onto the dunes by the river bank. I needed to take 3 or 4 tablets to dull the pain, but to my dismay, I had forgotten my medical kit. Still, I consoled myself with the thought that once again I was alone, unlike the mass swept up in the commotion around me. I recalled my school days where I had the peculiar distinction of being the only boy with a scar on his eyebrow. I vanished without a word. Outside to the queue. A sudden ear-splitting shriek jolted me from my thoughts. I turned my head sharply and saw a long procession of men dancing and advancing towards me. At the center of it all was a man holding an ornate lamp with multiple flickering wicks in one hand and a saffron flag on the other. His voice grated like stones rolling across a metal sheet, while the chorus of his followers croaked like wild geese startled by a lethal descent. They had picked up a whirlwind of bedlam, stomping madly through the dust, their frenzied movements blending into the billowing clouds of earth they themselves had kicked up. I cursed myself for boarding the treasured bus that had stranded me in this madness. My plan had to visit a pristine, untouched forest, one unspoiled by human presence, and this bus had been my only means of getting there. Now I had to devise a way to escape these raving throngs before they ensnared me completely. As if on cue, the nerve at my temple throbbed and the muscle in my thigh twitched. I tried to stand and slip away from the oncoming parade, but fate had other plans. The ever expanding circle of bodies stretched further and further until it engulfed me entirely, toppling me head over heels. A hand seized mine from one side, another anchored me from the other, both oblivious to my protests and desperate attempts to break free. My cries were drowned in their deafening chorus, and my body was dragged into the wild, undulating rhythm. Hopelessly, helplessly, I was swept into the frenzied dance, my feet forced to stamp and left leap against my will. At some point, exhausted from resisting the current, I lost track of time. I no longer knew when I had stopped fighting, and when I had dumbly, unwittingly became part of this filling, chanting mass. When the dance finally paused for a brief moment, I found myself in a semi stupor, unable to tell whether it was the early hours of dawn or the heart of noon. Where do you hail from? I turned at the sound of a voice. He had a light brown complexion, a long black beard with a thin streak of white running through it. After I answered, he said, "That's quite far away, but you danced and sang remarkably well. Had you much practice?" Where had I danced? My existence had been swallowed up by their ritual, manipulated as if I were nothing more than a puppet whose hands and legs were tied to the threads and handled by a huge hand of a puppeteer. Eyeing me with amusement, he said, "I stepped away into the shade of the dunes to answer nature's call, and it seems they mistook you for me. Look at our beds. They are almost identical." The group's leader poured oil into the lamp, adjusted the wicks, and began humming a song in a deep, resonant voice. Before I could react, the bearded man seized my hand and dragged me back into the circle. I joined in, although reluctantly, as his grip was firm, making escape impossible. The leader sang, the leader's song wove itself into an eerie, mesmerizing symphony, layered with voices and the rhythmic jingling of anklets on countless feet. I had no sense of time. I only realized how long it had lasted when, utterly spent, the dancers finally collapsed onto the sand to rest. A sea of people dressed in airy of colors, makeshift tents selling everything from bangles to sweetmeats, coolies, peasants, vagrants, nomads, those who toiled daily for their bread and those who lived without a thought for tomorrow, ordinary folk, humble and grounded, their faces alight with childlike wonder, waves of humanity rolling over one another, the pungent scent of sweat thick in the air, smiles, chuckles, pelts of laughter, every face shimmering like a star, every face glowing like the flickering lamp of an oil lamp. "It's nearly dawn. Are not you hungry?" the bearded man asked. Without waiting for my response, he grabbed my arm and led me away. Then he ordered hot pancakes sizzling on an iron pan over a three-stone hearth where dried wood cracked beneath. When a plate piled high with steaming pancakes and generous dollop of curry was thrust into my hands, I protested. "I can't eat so many." Halfway through his meal, he let out a hefty guffaw and teased, "Eat as much as you can. Wolf them down and get moving. Are you planning to loiter here all the day?" Even before I had finished the last bite of my plate, a tall glass of tea had appeared in front of me. "You cover your bill and I will settle mine. We go Dutch," he declared. A sudden commotion erupted from the next tent. "Why should we miss the fun? Let us see how it plays out," he shouted, dragged me inside. It turned out to be a bustling gambling den where large groups of men were deeply engrossed in various games. We placed our bets, and while I won on my third attempt. He kept losing round after round. After several more rounds, luck finally turned in his favor. With a triumphant grin, he pushed back his chair and said, "That's it. Time to walk away while we are ahead. Good riddance." By then, the first light of dawn was creeping over the horizon. He stopped for by a roadside stall where fiery chili budgies were sprouting in vat of scalding oil. The one who wins the most games has to foot the bill, he announced with a smirk. Two bites in, my eyes were streaming with tears from the intense heat. The only way to cool the burn was to down 2 glasses of juice from a nearby vendor. Is there room for spicy parched rice in your stomach? He asked and ordered 2 plates. I really cannot, I mumbled. Just put it in your mouth. Let us see if it goes down or not, he challenged with a grin. Besides, there is biryani waiting for us in the tent over there. I had to nibble the biryani also. A massive crowd was charging towards us. Catch it, grab it, came the deafening cries. Move aside. The bearded man barked, shoving me to one side. I stumbled backwards and collided with something hurtling towards me. Instinctively, I reached out and grabbed hold of it, only to be shoved aside in the chaos. I had no idea what had just happened, but before I could gather my wits, I was hoisted into the air by a group of men cheering, "Hip, hip, hooray." When they finally set me down, the bearded man came running towards me, his eyes gleaming, said, "I know you are not an ordinary man. How did you manage to tear off the purse tied to the horns of a raging bull so effortlessly?" Before I could respond, he anchored me along, and I had no choice but to race behind him. We sprinted all the way to the river bank, where several men lay sprawled on the sand, almost naked, their bodies covered in thick layer of mud. "Don't underestimate mud," he said knowingly. "It is ultimate cure for countless ailments. But before we can have mud bath, we need to take a dip into the river first." Without warning, he dragged me into the water. The coolness of the river was instantly refreshing, making it hard to leave in a hurry. But as soon as I plunged in, a terrifying thought struck me. I did not know how to swim. Panicked, I stood up in the chest deep water, but he merely laughed and shouted, "Kick your legs, move your arms." I hesitantly followed his instructions and, to my amazement, found myself floating. I burst into laughter when tiny fish began nipping at my skin, tickling me all over. During the mud bath, as we smeared ourselves from head to toe, snails and crabs mistook me for a lump of earth, crawling over me as though I were part of the river itself. I I collapsed onto the sand and I dozed off. When I woke up, I looked around for him, but he was nowhere to be seen. Panicked, I ran through the crowd calling out, "Where are you?" I washed myself and then I asked everyone I came across, "Have you seen a man with a thick beard and white streak running through it?" Eventually, I approached a barber sitting between two tents and repeated my question. He glanced at me, then smirked and handed me a small mirror. "He is right in front of me," he said with a chuckle. As I started at my reflection, a memory struck me. The bearded man had once told me we both look alike. "Sit down. I will have that beard off in a minute," the barber ordered. I didn't resist. 5 minutes later, with my face cleanly shaven, I felt relieved. Now there was only one man at the fair with a black beard and a distinctive white streak, and I could easily catch hold of him. Determined, I scoured the entire fair, waving through the crowds and searching high and low. But the more I searched, the more frustrated I became. He was nowhere to be found. As I ran through the bustling lanes, a man suddenly grabbed my arm and shouted, "Where have you been? Our bus was repaired long back, and we have been looking for you since the morning." When I reached out the bus, the passengers glared at me, their faces thunderous. "How much longer were we supposed to wait for you?" They shrilled in unison. A man with a thick black beard and a long white streak running through it. "Have you seen him?" I shrieked. They simply stared at me in silence, frowning. The bus made a slow turn, circled back, and began to steer away. "There he is," I cried, spotting him in the middle of the crowd. As the bus moved further, I caught sight of him again in another throng. "It is him over here," I shouted. But the bus picked up speed, and to my immense astonishment, I saw him everywhere. His face seemed to emerge from the every crowd, lurking in every group of people. I kept shrieking, "There he is, there he is." But the passengers simply rolled their eyes, ignored my outburst, clearly exasperated. Then something even stranger happened. From a distance, the entire fairground began to resemble the bad man's face, as if the whole Mela had taken on his likeness. A glint from my seat caught my eye. It was my medical kit. I realized I had not taken a single pill since the previous evening. That's when it struck me. The throbbing nerve at my temple and the aching muscle in my thigh had completely ceased to trouble me. My body felt as light as a feather. Memories of the feast I have devoured, the games I have played, and the countless strangers I had met came flooding back, bringing unexpected warmth to my heart. I was overwhelmed with gratitude for that mysterious man who had unknowingly guided me to a place where I had never even dreamed of. He had taught me a lesson I never knew I needed: to blend in, to be one among many, to dissolve into a crowd without standing apart. That losing oneself in the great tide of humanity was not a loss, but a gift. That swimming with this current of life rather than against it was an experience worth 1,000 lifetimes. And so I kept searching for him among the masses, in the throngs, in the endless sea of faces. Thank you. With this current of life rather than against it was an experience worth 1,000 lifetimes. And so I kept searching for him among the masses, in the throngs, in the endless sea of faces. What is his name? Thank you. Paul Sharma. Yes. Yes. Thank you for your patient hearing. And the next short story is by Mr. Beam Paul Sharma ji. He will be reading his story in Hindi or English.
Hello.
He will be reading his story in Hindi. Yes. Thank you for your patient.
नमस्कार दोस्तों, मैं बात महात्मा गांधी से शुरू करता हूं। बीएचयू के अधिवेशन में जब महात्मा गांधी ने एड्रेस किया, उन्होंने कहा कि अभी तक आपने किस भाषा में सुना, क्या कुछ समझ में आया? मेरी बधाई अपने दोस्त के लिए। नमस्कार, मैं अपनी कहानी हिंदी में ही पढ़ूंगा। उम्मीद है हिंदी जानते हैं आप लोग? हाथ तो खड़ा करो। थैंक यू। मुझे 15 मिनट दिए गए हैं। चेयरमैन सर, या आप 15 मिनट से 2 मिनट पहले हाथ खड़ा कर देना, ठीक है ना? जिससे कि जो नियम बाकी जनता के लिए होते हैं वो मेरे लिए भी। थैंक यू। कल अंतर्राष्ट्रीय महिला दिवस है। हर साल मनाया जाता है। इस साल मुझे अच्छा लगा जब मुझे कहानी पढ़ने के लिए सेक्रेटरी साहब ने कहा और मेरे दिमाग में था, तो मेरे दिमाग में 3-4 कहानियां उन्हीं मजदूरों की सामने आई जो छप चुकी हैं, जो बंगाल, झारखंड से दिल्ली के अमीरों के घर काम करती हैं। एक का नाम गांठ है, एक का नाम दिल्ली की एक मौत है, और तीसरी श्रद्धांजलि है। मैंने श्रद्धांजलि कहानी को चुना है जो कथादेश में पिछले दिनों छपी थी, कि कैसे विस्थापन के दर्द से वे गुजरती हैं। इसकी जरूरत इसलिए पड़ी, मैंने साहित्य अकादमी के सभागार में इतनी कम प्रेजेंस कम ही देखी है, इसलिए आप समझ सकते हो कि उसी अनुपात में यहाँ पर 2-3 लोग गायब हो गए हैं। लेकिन एक ब्रिटिश कहावत है, मैं 1 मिनट ले रहा हूं, कि अगर 2 आदमी भी सुनने वाले हैं, और 2 तो हैं ही, आप हैं, अरुण, डॉक्टर अरुण हैं, राजन है, मेरे कुछ और दोस्त भी हैं, सुनील है, जितेंद्र है, तो मैं कहानी पढ़ूंगा ही, ठीक है? मैं उस पर कहानी लिखना चाहता था। कई वर्षों तक यह विचार मेरे अंदर चहलकदमी करता रहा। बात कैसे आगे बढ़े, आंखों में आंख डालकर उसकी आंखें खुद बताना चाहती थीं अपनी कहानी। वे मेरे बराबर वाले घर में नौकरानी थी। चौधरी राय चौधरी की सेवा के लिए इसे रखा गया था पिछले 10-12 साल से। वो भी मुझे अक्सर बालकनी में दिख जाती थी। उम्र लगभग 50 वर्ष, कुछ कम भी हो सकती है। गदराया बदन, चमकीली आंखें, बंगाली में ही कुछ कुछ बोलते बतियाते हुए, कभी कभी फ्लैटों की चार दीवारी के पास सटी पान की दुकान पर ऊंची आवाज में आवाज लगाते। पता नहीं उसे कैसे पता लग जाता था कि कौन कौन बंगाली बच्चे यहाँ पर आसपास काम करते हैं। उनको उपदेश देती और फिर अंदर चली जाती। शायद मकान मालिक का डर भी हो कि बातें ही करती रहोगी या। उससे परिचय की कई परतें हैं। जब मैं इस फ्लैट में किराए पर आया तो कई दिन तक, जैसे महानगर में होता है, कोई संवाद नहीं हुआ। फिर संडे को हमने एक दूसरे को देखा। मैं कपड़े धोकर सुखा रहा था। आवाज पर्याप्त है? उसे यकीन हुआ कि हो न हो मैं भी इस घर का नौकर हूं। उसने खुद पहल कर बात करनी चाहिए बंगाली में, जिसके भाव थे, कहां से हो प्यारे, क्या क्या काम करते हो, कपड़े धोने के अलावा भी कुछ करते हो, और दिन में कहां चले जाते हो, इस घर में और कौन कौन है। फिर धीरे धीरे हमारी आधी साधी भाषा में तार जुड़ते गए। आप कहां से? उसने बताया, वीरभूमि। बंगाल में है या बिहार में? मैंने पूछा तो उसे खुद नहीं समझ पाई। मनुष्य कितना भी अकेलेपन में शांति की तलाश करे, सच्ची शांति दुनिया के साथ दुख दर्द बांटने में मिलती है। बालकनी में थोड़ी खड़कन के साथ हम आ खड़े होते। वह कुछ कहना चाहती थी, मैं कुछ सुनना चाहता था, लेकिन कैसे? जब मैं उसकी बात भी पूरी तरह नहीं समझ सकता। बंगाली भी ऐसी जिसे दूर दराज के ठेठ गांवों देहातों में बोला जाता होगा। वक्त ऐसे ही गुजरता रहा, वर्ष दर वर्ष। टुकड़े टुकड़े सच, किस्से, घटनाएं छन कर आती रही। पता लगा उसका नाम केया है। केया एक शायद बंगाल में एक पत्ती फूल का नाम होता है। खुद के साथ साथ पड़ोसियों की आंखों का भी डर रहता, कहानी के चक्कर में मेरी भी चटखारेदार कहानी न बन जाए। फिर यह यकीन भी था कि कोई मौका तो मिलेगा ही। लेकिन अचानक ये खबर, उसकी मौत की खबर, मेरा दिमाग एक फड़फड़ाहट के साथ उसकी स्मृतियों में डूबने लगा। मैं क्यों नहीं कुछ पूछ पाया? वह सब सारे प्रश्नों की चमगादड़ें मुझसे लिपट रही हैं। क्या हुआ था? क्यों घर छोड़ना पड़ा था उसे? आपकी शादी कैसे हुई थी? एक बच्चा था, उसकी याद आती होगी। वो कौन दूसरी औरत थी जिसे उसका आदमी घर ले आया था और इसको निकाल दिया था? बीच बीच में बस इतना पूछ पाता, आपका बेटा ठीक है? उसकी आंखें जलती बुझती। कभी चिट्ठी लिखता है, वो फोन के इशारे से ही बताती। फिर मेरे बच्चे के बारे में पूछने लगती, कब आएगा, परीक्षा कब है। कुछ शब्द उसने दिल्ली में ही सीखे थे। फिर अपने मालिक के बच्चे की बातें बताने लगती कि उसकी भी परीक्षा है। उसकी आंखों की चमक बताती मानो अपने बेटे की बात कर रही हो। मैंने कहा, आपका बेटा भी तो गौरव के बराबर है, उसकी भी नौकरी लगेगी, फिर उसके साथ रहना। मैं उसकी उम्मीदों को पंख लगाता। उसने मानो सुना ही न हो। पता नहीं, गौरव के पापा का भी ट्रांसफर हो जाएगा, कलकत्ता जाएंगे। उन्हें पता नहीं होता अपने भविष्य का, मालिक के साथ जुड़ा होता है। मैंने महसूस किया इस प्रश्न से मानो वे डर गई हैं। राय चौधरी की बूढ़ी माँ जब तक जिंदा रही, उसकी नौकरी पक्की ही नहीं, माँ के किसी भी बेटा बेटी पोती से ज्यादा जरूरी थी। बरसों बरसों से बिस्तर पर पड़ी माँ का मरना, जहां चौधरी परिवार के लिए एक बड़ी राहत थी, वहां केया नौकरानी के लिए जिंदगी की अनिश्चितता की शुरुआत, कि अब मेरा अगला ठिकाना क्या होगा, मेरी कहां नौकरी होगी। रोज ऐसा ही चलता रहा और एक दिन पता लगा कि केया वहां नहीं रही। कई महीने बीत गए होंगे इस बात को। सर्दियों के भुकभुके में मैं मॉर्निंग वॉक की रफ्तार में था। देखा केया एक बच्चे का स्कूल बैग पकड़े खड़ी है बस के इंतजार में। पहले तो पहचानने में दिक्कत हुई, कुछ अंधेरा, कुछ अचानक किसी जान पहचान के चेहरे का आ जाना, लेकिन उससे ज्यादा उसका निचोड़ा हुआ सा शरीर, पुरानी कद काठी की जगह एकदम आधी, उससे ज्यादा मानो वो अपने को छिपाने की कोशिश कर रही हूं। मेरे पैर फिर भी ठिठक गए। ठीक तो हो? यहां कैसे? मैंने तो सुना था कि आप वीरभूमि वापस चली गई हो। उसके सिर्फ पहचानने भर को होठ हिले। इस बीच स्कूल बस में बच्चे चढ़ने लगे तो उसने उस बच्चे को चढ़ा दिया। मैं अब यहाँ मानस सोसाइटी में हूं, किसी को बताना नहीं। उसने उंगली से दो दो बार इशारा करके मना किया। मैं कुछ समझा कुछ नहीं समझा कि आखिर क्यों डर रही है। कई बार ऐसा होता है कि आप कुछ आंखों के भावों का जोर और जानना चाहते हैं, शायद वे आंखें भी बोलना चाहती हैं, लेकिन इससे आगे बर्फ जमी रहती है। मैं मदद भी क्या कर सकता था? क्या उसे अपने घर ठिकाना दे सकता हूं? यदि बीमार है तो क्या अस्पताल में ले जा सकता हूं? कुछ भी नहीं। मैंने पत्नी की को जरूर सब कुछ बता दिया, सिर्फ यह सुनने के लिए कि दुनिया भर की महिलाओं से तो तुम्हें सिंपैथी है, अपनी पत्नी से नहीं। और जोड़ते हुए भी कि वैसे तो आपके पास समय नहीं रहता, लेकिन टहलने जाते हो या आंखें लड़ाने जाते हो। और वाकई एक दिन अचानक उसी बालकोनी में केया फिर से काम करना शुरू हो गई। वे लौटकर फिर चौधरी के घर आ गई थी। कैसे आई, क्यों चली गई थी, ये प्रश्न अभी भी मेरे दिमाग में फड़फड़ा रहे थे। रविवार का दिन था। वे सामने राय चौधरी की बहन को खाना लेकर जा रही थी। चुप्पी उन्होंने ही तोड़ी। मैं इनकी बहन के लिए भी खाना बनाने लगी हूं। वो रेडियो आर्टिस्ट है और कुछ नहीं करती। उसको जीने के लिए अब एक और मकसद जो मिल गया था। अमीरों के चेहरे जिस सेवा शब्द से कुमला जाते हैं, उनको काम मिल जाए तो उनका चेहरा खिल उठता है। ठीक हो जाओ, बहुत कमजोर हो गई हो आप। उसकी आंखों में आंसू ढुलकने लगे। वो अपनी पुरानी मालकिन के बारे में बताने लगी। वो खाना नहीं देती थी, एक भी दिन मछली मांस कुछ नहीं, सब कुछ खुद खुद ही खा जाते थे। घर से भी नहीं निकलने देते थे, कभी कभी मारते भी थे। डर भरी नजरों से इधर उधर देखती वे सिसकने लगी। ज्यादातर अमीर ऐसा कर रहे हैं अपनी नौकरानियों के साथ। कहीं मेरी नजर से चौधरी को कोई गफलत न हो। मैंने बात को तुरंत समेटा। कोई बात नहीं, सब ठीक हो जाएगा। अपने पुराने घोंसले चौधरी के घर को, उसकी स्मृतियों को वे जिंदा भी रखना चाहती थी और दूर भी भागती थी। अंदर ही अंदर मानो वे अपने बेटे को बड़ा होता देख रही थी। क्या बच्चों पर सिर्फ उनको जन्म देने वाली माँ का ही अधिकार होता है, या उन्हें खिलाने पिलाने वाले नौकर चाकरों का? मालिक के बेटे की एक एक चीज का वे ध्यान रखती। एक दिन उसने बताया, दिल्ली जैसे शहरों में परिचय के अंतिम लैंप पोस्ट होली दिवाली भी कुछ परिचय की भूमिका निभा रही हैं। उसी दिन पता चला कि केया कई महीनों से बीमार है, शरीर सूख गया था। अमीर बीमार होते हैं तो दिल्ली पहुंचते हैं, गरीब दिल्ली में बीमार भी हों तो शहर छोड़ देते हैं। ये शहर जीने के लिए तो मजदूरी का जुगाड़ कर सकते हैं, बीमारी में दवा का नहीं। ये बड़े बड़े अस्पताल, ऑल इंडिया मेडिकल साइंस, मेट्रो अस्पताल सिर्फ बड़े पैसे वालों के लिए हैं। गरीब का गांव में ही मरना है, अपनों के बीच मरने की तसल्ली तो है। पता लगा वह है एक अस्पताल में भर्ती थी। नर्स पूछ रही है, ऑपरेशन हो चुका है। डॉक्टर सिस्टर के साथ राउंडर पर था। सिस्टर ने आवाज लगाई, बेड नंबर 108। अरे कौन है इनके पास? इन्हें तो कल शाम को ही बेड खाली करना था। सिस्टर मानो डॉक्टर को खुद सफाई दे रही है। सिस्टर ने झुककर किया की आंखों में झांका, फिर इशारे से पूछा, आपके साथ कौन है? सुना उसने हाथ हिलाया, कोई नहीं। दिल्ली? दिल्ली नहीं, यहां कौन है? कोलकाता में। कोई हो ना हो, सपने तो होंगे ही इन पुतलियों में। क्या सपनों पर हक सिर्फ अमीरों का है? क्या प्रेम स्नेह याचना भरी वे आंखें कभी नहीं दिखाई देंगी? मैं उन्हीं आंखों से क्षमा मांग रहा हूं, एक लेखक के नाते भी। आपसे आपकी व्यथा भी नहीं सुन पाया। आप बहुत कुछ कहना चाहती थी। भुगतना औरत को ही होता है, तालिबान हो या कोई और नाम। 50 की उम्र भी कोई उम्र होती है। बूढ़े अमीरों की उम्र के लिए गरीबों को अपनी उम्र कुर्बान करनी पड़ती है। आप बहुत कुछ कहना चाहती थी, लेकिन मेरे ही पास न हिम्मत थी, न धैर्य, न वक्त। आंखें मुकते वक्त यदि मैं भी पल के लिए स्मृतियों में आया हूं, तो हे ईश्वर, मुझे माफ करना। मेरी अंतिम श्रद्धांजलि। धन्यवाद।
She is going to read. He will be reading. Okay, right. So, so I hope all of you have enjoyed the story in Hindi, which made a reference to Bengal as well as Delhi. So in a way, it reflects the integration of this country. So in a marvelous way. Now we are going to have an Indian English short story by Rashmi Nazari, and she will be reading online. I'm happy to introduce her to this august audience. Now I request her to read her short story. Of this country. So in a marvelous way. Now we
Thank
are
you
going
very
to
much.
have an
Am I
Indian English
audible?
short story.
Am I audible?
Nazari, and she will be reading online. I'm happy to introduce her to this august audience. Now I request her to read her short story. Of this country. So,
Am I audible? Thank you so much.
now
Thank
we
you
are going
very
to have an Indian
Am I
English
audible?
short story.
Am I audible?
Nazari, and she will be reading online. I'm happy to introduce her to this august audience. Now I request her.
Am I audible, please? Am I audible? Can you hear me?
हेलो
Hello,
मैम बोलिए।
can you hear me, please? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me, please?
जूम कॉल कनेक्ट करने में थोड़ी टेक्निकल डिफिकल्टीज आ रही हैं, प्लीज बेयर विद अस। 2
Can
मिनट
you
की
hear
बात
me?
है।
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you. Right, right, right.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Ma'am, are we audible to you?
Yes, I can hear you, but can you
Okay,
hear me?
but
Can
your
you hear
voice is
me?
not coming, I guess. Yeah, just wait.
Okay.
Hello. Now,
Yes, I can
now
hear
can
you.
you speak?
Yes, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Can you hear me, please? I can hear you.
Ma'am, can you please exit this meeting and rejoin?
Okay, I'll do that. Yes.
सुनाई दे रहा है बट उनकी आवाज तो इसी में नहीं आ रही ना सिस्टम में नहीं आ रही उसका साउंड आ रहा है लाइव का आ रहा है नहीं अभी नहीं हाँ वो तो बढ़ा दूंगा Hello, ma'am.
Yes, I can
Now,
hear you. I can hear you. Yes.
now you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Uh,
Hmm.
कोई मतलब नहीं.
Can you hear me now?
No, ma'am, your voice is not coming. Hello.
In the meantime, then let some other story reader
नहीं नहीं
please read the
नहीं म्यूट तो
story.
नहीं है बट उनके सिस्टम में कुछ इशू है मे बी एक बार आप
Because I had tested in the morning.
मैम कैन यू प्लीज check your system voice or system audio
I
system
had
audio
a system audio. Yes,
or you can
I
try
had.
with disabling मतलब unplug this earplug your earphone and
No,
try
because
your
I'm on a PC, so it won't be possible. But I had tried.
or you can try with your phone if you want to check. Try this link on your phone
Okay.
or another device.
Take this.
Uh, are we audible to you? Hello.
শুনা পোৱা নাই নেকি?
শুনা পোৱা নাই বুঢ়ীহঁতি। এতিয়া শুনিব নেকি?
Can you hear? Hello? Hello? Hello, hello.
Hello. Rashmi ma'am, can you unmute yourself?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear us? তুমি এইফালে আৱাজটো পালা ন? আজি মই ৰেকৰ্ডিংটো কৰি দেখাই দিছিলোঁ।
অথনি ধুনীয়াকে কথা পাতিলো তই মই।
চিষ্টেমত চাউণ্ডটো বেলেগ হেৰি হৈ আছে, আউটপুট বেলেগ হৈছে চাগে।
হেল্ল'?
Your phone as well. Sir, same setup has been done in Brahmapura. Yeah, but she is telling me.
You did it. Same stuff has been done in so and so also.
Are divided. For your assurance, we are joining here in different ways.
Bounce. Hello. Hello.
कर रहा है ये क्या ये कर रहा है मैं और रश्मि मैम कर रही है अपने साइड से मैं आपको चेक करवा रहा हूँ कि हमारे जूम में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है
Hello. 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 नहीं आ रही आवाज उसको बंद हेलो 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 हेलो
हेलो हेलो हेलो हेलो हेलो हेलो
हाँ आ रहा है आ रहा है आ रहा है आ रहा है
हेलो
आ रहा है आ रहा है आवाज आवाज आ रही है मैं भी हो सकता है एक सेकंड वही कर रहा हूँ
Hello,
हाँ साउंड इसका लगा रहा
can you get me now?
हूँ ये क्या भाई इसमें ऑक्स लगाने का
Can you get me now, please?
Hello.
Hello. Can you get me now? Hello. Hello.
म्यूट करो
Hello.
यार
Can you get
वोकल
me now?
इससे लिसन
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Hello.
Please start
You
your
can hear me?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Should I start?
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Okay.
बॉक्स में दिक्कत है पहले पता होता साउंड कार्ड ही लगा देता निकाल के कुछ नहीं
Sorry.
और
Okay. Should I start now? Should I start? Can you hear me?
Yeah, madam.
लो अब बात करो
Okay.
Yeah, you can start, madam.
The name of my story is Singing a Spring Song, and it's about spring because now we're in the spring season. And this is from a Boro village, so there will be a few Boro words in between, but later on you'll have to. So I'm starting to read now. When old Ojai played his siphon, River stopped to listen. Is the sound okay? Is
यस
the
मैम
sound okay? Okay. When old Ojai played his siphon, River stopped to listen. Wounded hearts healed, orchids bloomed, and birds sang a symphony. Such was the magic that Ojai and his siphon created together. It was then spring, but that year the rains hadn't yet arrived in the village of Madlagami, and the pandemic strangled spring song. This story was written during the time of the pandemic. So Ojai sat forlorn, missing the gaiety of Besagu. Besagu is the New Year celebration of the Boros, Besakhi. During one such lonesome moment, Ojai chanced upon the little Santal boy in the yard across his. He had seen him before, but never really noticed him. Tiny and malnourished, he lay on a charpoy in the shades of the tamarind tree in their small unfenced yard, patting a goat that suckled her kids. A dog lay with its chin on his feet. There didn't seem to be anyone else in the house, which was a paltry shed of a storm-bent tin sheet over reed walls. A few hens clapped about, pecking at ants on the dry, sun-baked ground. It surprised Ojai that he saw this place every day, but had never really noticed it until then. When the boy saw Ojai, sat up and grinned. He was wearing only a small loincloth around his waist. Ojai's heart went out to the boy. Had your meal, son? Ojai shouted. The boy shook his head. Not hungry? Ojai asked. The boy nodded. Ojai asked no further. What's the name? Ojai shouted instead. Jugno, the boy replied. He then held up the dog and shouted, Batlu! Jugno's liveliness made Ojai smile. Where's your mother? Ojai asked. Gone to bring rice. Their conversation was a blend of Boro and Santal, which made Ojai fondly recollect those times long ago when there was harmony between the Bodos and Santals. But since the Bodo-Santal riots, the two communities had swiftly and sadly drifted apart. Now, as Jugnu spoke in fragmented Boro and Santal, Ojai gathered that Tara had gone to the Haldibari Primary School to collect a relief package, which was being doled out during the time of the pandemic. And your school? Ojai asked. I don't go to school. The boy, who was big enough to go to school, replied. He might have been around 7 or maybe 8. Why? Ojai asked. Jugnu flapped the loincloth he was wearing. I don't want to go in this. I'll go when Mai gets me a pair of pants. The sun was scorching and it was past midday. Ojai's daughter-in-law Bibari got up from her loom, put 2 eggs and a few rice cakes which she prepared for Baisagu into a bag and held it out for Jugnu. As he took it and looked in, his eyes lit up with joy like fireflies. Jugnu. Maybe that's why Tara named him Jugnu. How Bibari longed to hold him to her boss, but the health workers had advised social distance. Bibari didn't understand how loving a child could pose a threat. As Jugnu ate, Ojai began whistling into his siphon. What magic those notes had! The heat began to mellow and the dust to settle. While Ojai played on, Jugnu slowly slid down on the charpoy and laid his head on Batlu's back. He licked up the last morsels of the rice cake from his fingers. Ojai played on softly, lulling the child to sleep. Even Batlu did not pull away from under Jugnu's head. The goat hunched on her knees, watching from under the charpoy. They all let the sleeping child be. No wonder, Ojai thought. Tara didn't think she left the child home alone. Soon Tara appeared in the distance, a heavy sack on her head. She didn't look like she had managed a pair of pants for Jugnu. It pained Ojai that it took a pandemic for him to notice this adorable little child and his weather-beaten young mother in a yard full of life, yet in dirt. Gradually, it became a routine for Ojai and Jugnu to be in each other's company, each from his own yard. The rains hadn't yet started, nor was the disease retreating. How Ojai missed ushering in Baisakhi. On afternoons when he felt too melancholic to even play his sifung, Jugnu would stand up on his charpoy and shout, "Hoi, sifung! Not playing today?" He had so much life in him, so much to give, despite having so little. So Ojai would take the sifung to his lips and Jugnu would listen and play around in his own yard. Then when he slowed down and came with Batlu to sit on the charpoy, Ujai knew it was time to switch tune to a lullaby. And the child would gently drop his head on Batlu and fall asleep. While all over the world people searched for ways to battle the pandemic, Ojai realized he had so much to garner in his own backyard. Once when Ojai didn't see Jugnu for long, he began to panic. Just then, Jugnu emerged from behind their house, his tiny hand held lovingly by Tara. He just realized how beautiful a bond had grown between him and Jugnu, age notwithstanding. "What's it now?" Ojai shouted at him. "Corn! Mai had sown some corn, but with no rain they won't sprout," Jugnu responded. Mai was digging up for yam roots. "Found any?" Ojai asked. Jugnu shook his head. "Fresh tender curls of dhenkia fern too won't grow without the rains. How I love to eat them. Even the wild taro and aram are fast getting exhausted. Mai says if the rains don't arrive soon, I'll get to eat only rice and salt." Tara no longer found daily wage work because of the lockdown. Some shops did have a measly stock of groceries, but Tara had no money to buy them. "Had you meal today?" Ojai asked. Jugnu nodded, but added, "My hasn't." "Why?" Ojai asked. "There was enough only for one," Jugnu replied. "Batlu or Mai?" In the shade of the hut, Ojai saw Batlu eating from a leaf. One day he had something in his hands which he held above his head for Ojai to see. "Why, now isn't that a serja?" Ojai exclaimed. Serja is one of the instruments of the Boros. It is a four-stringed instrument played like a violin. Ojai's heart pounded. He knew whose that was. Mai says my grandfather used to play this. Notes of the broken serja resonated through the corridors of Ojai's memory. So many Baisagus, he and Marcus, Jugnu's grandfather, had danced the Bagrumba together. The Bagrumba is the traditional folk dance of the Boros. And then the riots happened. Like the pandemic, the riots too had throttled the gaiety of Baisago many years ago, driving a wedge between two beautiful people. Those two were Baisagos when people stayed indoors for fear of their lives. Ojai's reverie broke when Jugnu called. "Mai said she kept it carefully so that I may play it some day," Jugnu said. "She said it held memories." He's talking about the serja. She said it held memories, that it was the only thing in the house for me to connect with my father and grandfather. He paused and asked Ojai, "You understand connect?" "Now what is connect?" Ojai asked, amused. "Connect," Jugnu explained, taking his right palm with the left and placing it gently above his heart, "is this." "Connect, yes," Ojai said. While the little boy touched his heart in his yard, it filled Ojai's to the brim back in his own yard across the path. "Can you mend this?" he asked about the serja to Ojai. "Then maybe you and I can play together, Abo," he asked enthusiastically. "You the sifung and I the serja." That day, for the first time, Jugnu addressed Ojai thus, "Abo, grandfather." "Why not?" Ojai's voice quivered. "That will be the happiest Wesaku ever." "Yes," Jugnu laughed, and holding the broken serja aloft, he began cavorting in glee with Batlu, singing a Bisagu song. He paused to shout, "Abo, whistle your sifung." "Righto!" Ojai shouted back, dancing into the courtyard. Seeing Ojai's jest, his son brought out the drum and began playing with gusto. As an angry son's last rays sank, Ojai changed his sifung's tune to cajole the skies to quench the parched earth's thirst. So soulful was the tune that even the cuckoo's song began pleading with the skies in harmony with Ojai Sifung to show mercy and let down the rains for Tara and Jugnu, and for all those for whom each full meal was a festival in itself, so much more looked forward to than Bisagu. The combined passion of the booming drumbeat, the sifung, and the cuckoo set such a racing pulse through the whole of the village and the skies above that even the heavens began to tremble. Soon, roaring drumbeats began to vibrate from all around the village. Suddenly, Ochai heard the roar of something other than drums. He thought he heard the heavens shudder. The sound was approaching from afar. The rumbling got louder as it kept nearing, and then a deafening boom clapped above them. Ojai jumped with joy. "Thunder!" Without realizing, Ojai began playing a tune of deep gratitude in anticipation of his pleas being heard. So moving was the melody that it tore through the stubbornness of the skies and at last made them weep. And heaven's tears fell on the scorched earth to quench her thirst. That same instant, Bisagu arrived at Madlagami, their little village. "Rain! Rain!" Jugnu jumped with delight. Vibari ran out into the courtyard. Large drops of rain fell on her face and trickled down her lips. She parted them to taste the first showers of spring. Trains of Bagrumba rose from separate courtyards all over Madlagami and came together to unite under one sky, to fill the air as one voice, singing the same ode to spring. Every family remained in its own courtyard, but their spirits embraced to celebrate the new year, singing and dancing as one, though apart. Wild with joy, Jugnu's voice rose above the clatter of rain and drum, singing Bisagu songs with the Boros. Bagurumba, hi Bagurumba. For the first time since Ojai had begun noticing Jugnu and Tara, he saw her happy. Swirling with Jugnu, she cried tears of joy. Bibari danced in her courtyard, Tara danced in hers. Two people in two yards, but the song they danced to was the same, of spring, of rejuvenation. The little boy they both loved was the same. So was the rain that soaked them. It was the same. Ojai knew among the voices that floated through the rain singing a spring song, his friends had theirs too from their own yards. And spring song filled the air, defeating desolation. That's it. So that's the end of the story. So we have the sifung, which is the flute, one of the musical instruments of the Boros. Baisagu is the Boro New Year, and Serja is the four-stringed musical instrument, and Bagarumba is the traditional Baisagu folk song of the Boros. Thank you, Saiti Academy, for giving me this opportunity virtually. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmiji. We enjoyed your story and we are very much liking it. You have taken all of us to the unique setting of Assam. Thank you very much. We can conclude. I want to say. So I thank all of you. I hope you enjoyed the story by Rashmi and though in spite of that, in spite of that nag we had, I think we enjoyed her story. She described the life of children in Godo in a marvelous way. I think it was a beautiful session, and in spite of these setbacks, I think it was a beautiful session which has three stories from different writers. And I thank Sahitya Academy for giving all of us this opportunity. Thank you very much.
साहित्य अपनी ओर से आप सभी का धन्यवाद करना चाहते हैं। बहुत सुंदर लगभग कथाएं सुनी। हमारा अगला सेशन है इंडियन पोएट्री इन डिफरेंट टाइम्स जो 2:30 बजे शुरू होगा। सभागार में मुलाकात जो पहले जैसा था वैसे ही करते मैं मीटिंग वहाँ से लिख कर मैं
अच्छा ये से इससे कर वो चल के रहेगा।
मुझे क्या कहाँ से एंड करनी है कहाँ से बंद करनी
एंड करोगे ना इधर से करोगे
है
नीचे आपको
लीव मीटिंग